Hi, Team Run, Coach Alexa here, coach for Reading, South Oxfordshire and the internet. My last video was all about GPS and how our running watches aren't quite as accurate as we might like to think. And I thought I'd sort of move on on that sort of topic a little bit onto a related subject, which is do we have to be measuring the hell out of everything when it comes to running? It's very easy to get really drawn into all of this data that our watches and apps give us. But actually, what are the pros and cons to that? So at the risk of sounding a bit like I'm starting this story, well, back in my day, when I started training, I didn't even have a stopwatch. I think that arrived about 2 years into my running journey, and it was one that came for free as part of a subscription to Runner's World magazine. And it just gave time, and it gave you the opportunity to press the lap button so you could time like a particular distance. Like if I was doing laps of the park, I could time each of those laps of the park, for example. But it didn't tell me how long I was going. I would work out how long I was going either very roughly by driving a road route. If I was, out in my car, I'd drive a loop I had in mind. There was a website that was more of a car route planning route that you could put little sort of pins on, and it would tell you roughly how long a route would be. Or if I was out on the trails, Ordnance Survey map and a piece of string, old school. And did that do people harm? 20 years back in their training? I don't think so. I'm still able to tick the boxes of, long runs of approximately the right distance and time, tempo sessions, interval sessions, etc. I was able to do all of that stuff still. Yes, I didn't know exactly how far I was going or exactly and accurately what pace I was doing. But, arguably we don't know exactly the distances and the paces now, thanks to the foibles of GPS stats. So the interesting sort of side story, I guess, to this thought process that's been going on in my head recently is, does all of this data enhance our training? And I would say, there are pros and cons. Sometimes it's useful to have more information. I do quite like heart rate as feedback, not just during the runs, but for me, if my resting heart rate's a little bit up, that might be because I'm not fully recovered from the previous day's session. It might be because I had a dodgy curry the night before or too many glasses of wine. It might be because I'm coming down with a cold or a bug or something. And that tells me a story, about how that training session that I've got planned for today is going to go. And if the heart rate's higher than usual during a training session, that might tell me a story. Overall trends of, for the same run at roughly the same speed in roughly the same conditions, is it feeling easier when I write up my training diary, or is my average heart rate a bit lower? That's a good trend, isn't it? Same effort or same effort level but quicker run, or same run but a lower effort level equals improvement in performance. But I do wonder sometimes whether this borderline obsession with the numbers that comes as almost part of the package of being a runner these days, we're perhaps losing a little bit of the skill of pacing ourselves, and also potentially the opportunity to achieve something that we might not think possible. So I'll give you a couple of little stories just as food for thought, because this is just me kind of chatting a little bit at the moment. One of which, I've had a runner that I've worked with for a good few years now. We catch up every fortnight for a track session where we do speed work. And he never knows how far he's going or how fast he's going. He doesn't use an app or a watch, not even a stopwatch to measure the time of his runs. He just goes out and does stuff, mostly whatever he pleases, apart from the track sessions he does with me, where I provide a little bit of structure to those sessions. And he, and I know this is only an experiment of one person, is the runner who is, I would say, best at pacing themselves, or in the top 5% of the best pacing themselves of any runner that I've worked with. He is very, very tuned in to his effort levels, his breathing rate, how much he can talk when he's running, and he's also developed a sense of what each different kind of effort level and speed of running feels like. So he describes pace as a sort of quite visually, like one of which, a faster pace, is called the robot, because he feels like his arms are driving quite a sort of mechanical feeling way to him. So he's got this really interesting and different way of being able to switch quite cleanly between different paces. And when I've measured him with a stopwatch on a 400-metre track, so I know that the time and the distance, he really is really, alarmingly good at pacing himself without any of that, external information. He's built it all kind of internally to himself as a skill. The other example I would give, there's a great book co-written by a running coach, Steve Magnus, and also a kind of life and business coach called Brad Stulberg, called Peak Performance. I'd recommend if you haven't read it already. And it starts with a little bit of an opening story around how much of our potential do we achieve in life and in running. And the example from one of the authors was, they used to be a miler at college, so the mile is 4 laps of the 400-metre track-ish, and he got his mile PB, he thinks, purely because, again, there were no stopwatches or particular, timings or GPS when he was doing it. He got his mile PB, best ever mile time, he reckons, but purely down to the fact that when he got around the first lap, the person who was in charge of calling out your time, so telling you how fast you'd done each lap as you ran past them, got the time wrong and set a time that was a little bit quicker than he was actually going. And what that set up in his head was this thought process of, oh, I'm going really fast, but it feels quite good. I feels like I've got loads more left in the tank. Let's see if I can push on a little bit. And he sort of wondered since, would that actually have happened if that time caller had not got that first lap time just a little bit too fast? And I often find this as well with races, when people are pacing themselves using their watch and are really kind of concentrating on pace, for each kilometre or each mile for a half marathon or marathon, for example. If it had been a good day and you were feeling great and the weather was good, if you'd not been pacing yourself to that target time, could you have gone faster? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Anyway, plenty of food for thought and not many actual conclusions in today's video, but hopefully it's got you thinking too. Happy running.